what I'm holding here is an end cap for a Latex 360 or 365. There are lots of these printers out there, which means there's lots of these end caps. I want to explain a few things about the end cap so you understand them, because there's some critical printer maintenance here, both for the end cap as well as for the spindle that it goes onto. This end cap is designed for the 3-inch aluminum spindles. The spindles have little fins on them. These slide into the fins. Something to understand about this end cap. The end cap is held down by this spring right there. You put the end cap on and then you secure it. That secures it with there's a little rubber piece at the end of the spring, and that attaches to the spindle and prevents the end cap from sliding out. I would consider this connection to be a very weak to moderate connection. It is not strong. If you secure this with a spring and then pull on it, you will dislodge it. If you do that repeatedly, the value of this connection is going to diminish. And then eventually you'll put the spring down and it has very little effect. And then as, say, a heavy roll of material is running, this is not holding firm and it's sort of walking to the left. That's undesirable. The other side, the cap attaches with two little metal prongs. It's a permanent position on one end or slightly indented. So that doesn't come under this issue. Be aware that if you pull on this enough times, it will weaken the force with which that spring holds this in place. I have several of these that I have made that mistake with, and they don't hold secure anymore. That's particularly bad for double-sided printing. So if I load a big banner in there and I run half the banner and it's got some weight to it, I'll come over at the end of the banner and see that the whole thing has walked maybe 1/4 to 1/2 an inch leftward. Well, that's going to create problems when I line it back up for side B. If I were to printing panel jobs, if I'm printing anything where I need to make sure that it travels straight down to the bottom, and this spring is compromised, which allows this thing to move that way, that's going to immediately red flag anything I've printed, and I'm going to wonder, is this accurate? So usually what I do, and I know that it's not much to look at, is I take a piece of masking tape and I kind of tuck it in onto the spindle and then onto the side of this so that this can't move on me. Now, if I hadn't pulled on this spring enough times, this thing would still be secure, but I'd still like to have it a little more secure. But in the meanwhile, I need to create something that effectively holds this in place a little better so that I can do a long panel run and not have my panels be inaccurate. This isn't an issue on the 315 or the 335 because it has a different attachment system for the spindle. And on the 500 series, we've eliminated the spindle altogether and it just goes right onto the end caps. One of the really nice things I like about the 500 is the spindleless system. But this is what we use for the 360 and 365, and it works just fine. But just out of a little sense of paranoia, I do tend to, on long panel jobs, I take that little piece of tape and I kind of push it onto the spindle and push it onto the cap, and then I click it down, and I try very hard not to ever take this thing off with the spring secure. It'll resist, and you have to release the spring and then slide it off. One other further note about the spindles themselves. Don't stand them up on a wall. It's going to slide down and fall on the ground. And when it does, it can bend those fins. And when you bend the fins, this will not slide on properly. And you'll have to be playing around with it to try to get it to go on. Then you'll have to take some pliers and a file or something and straighten those fins out. I recommend that you find a place to set the spindle. What I do is I have a couple kind of oversized bean bags that I put on top of the printer. Don't cover up the holes that you need to have the air ventilation, but I have them sitting there so that when I'm not using the spindle, I set it up on top of the bean bag, and then I put my roll, I drop the tray, put the roll on the tray, and then I slide the spindle in and then turn it down. When I'm done, I take the spindle out, set it on top of the bean bags, and then I remove the roll, I tape it up, remove the roll, and set it aside. That way I always have a place to put the spindle, rather than taking the spindle and putting it up against the wall only to see somebody bump it and it slide down and bend the fins. Key care for your caps and key care recommendations for the spindle, both of which are important. You don't want to have to replace these. Using a little bit of tape, I know it's ungainly, it's not much to look at. It does get the job done. I do use high quality masking tape. I don't skimp there. Don't get the blue stuff. It doesn't have enough adhesive. I like a good high quality 2-inch masking tape that doesn't leave any adhesive behind. Simple recommendations. Be aware of this as one of the factors if you're not getting even registration, if it's wall coverings or panel jobs or double-sided printing, anything where the direct drop down to the take-up reel is critical and you're doing some longer runs, this is something that can come into play if you're not careful. And if this is not secure, then you can't say for sure that this wasn't one of the factors and why things drifted on you and you didn't get the results you hoped. So definitely make sure you observe this and note this as one of the things that I immediately go to see if weak spring, spindle walked, material moved. That's one of the first things I'm going to look at mechanically to see what would be some of the causes if my panels don't line up.